Well, hello to everybody. Let's just deal with this. Oops, that's not what I wanted. All right. I know I got to wait here just a couple of seconds, but I'm going to start it right away. Donald Trump is in the Epstein file 38,000 times so far. That doesn't include the pictures or recordings or files that haven't been released, because there's still another 3 million files that haven't been released. So you still have 38,000 times Trump is named in the Epstein files. Jesus Christ was named 1,900 times in the Bible, not the list. Don't worry, you can stay here. I'm not crazy. And that was his own book. Harry Potter had a 7-book series, and Harry Potter himself was only mentioned 1,900 times. I mean, the fact that Trump was named 38,000 times and the House Oversight Committee is failed to actually go after him and talk to him and want to sit down and talk to him, but they're going to round the bound and go check to Bill Clinton because somehow I guess they want to pay retribution for the Democrats. It doesn't make much sense. Bill Clinton was in for 1,900 times. He was mentioned 1,900 times. They don't know exactly how he was mentioned, but realize this. Mentioned could be news clippings, could be articles that featured him, because there was 2009 times that Obama was listed in the Epstein files, but each time it was just newspaper clippings or it was excerpts transferred over showing like, oh, hey, look, this is what Obama's doing, da 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 da. It didn't actually mean that he was being, a part of or doing association with. Now, just so we're clear, there is no tie to Obama to Epstein. There's a tie to, Bill Clinton. So they want to pull him in for a focus. They want to, God, I'm just choking right now. I apologize, guys. Good morning. They want to pull Clinton in. Okay, great. Clinton is mentioned 1,900 times in the Epstein files. Trump is mentioned 38,000 times. Which is funny because the Republicans that are so hell-bent on getting Bill Clinton into Congress to speak about the Epstein files are the very ones that wanted to impeach him back in the 90s for getting sexual frisky with an intern. Those same ones that were so hell-bent on nailing him because he was lying to Congress and the American people about his sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky now are dead silent when they watched their own leader, Trump, lie on every platform known to man that he had any relations with or business relations or ties to Epstein. That, it was years ago and they haven't really, but yet now we're finding out more and more evidence to show that he was not only part of Epstein's crew, but he was complicit in a lot of things. And yet all of this is still stone silent on the Republicans, which makes no sense at all unless you just consider the fact that they're all crooked and they either are on the list themselves or they are protecting him because they're all going to get paid off. But one thing about Trump that no one wants to remember, he doesn't pay his debts. He doesn't pay his contractors. He has never once actually come through and paid for anything full price. But so any kind of back end deal that you think he's generating, that he's somehow going to take care of you on the back end, not going to happen. Rudy Giuliani, he's still waiting to get paid like what, $5 million, and he got disbarred and he's like losing everything, his house and he's almost on the street, and Trump's not there to help him, because if you're not helping Trump, then you're no good to Trump and he will ostracize you. It's just ridiculous. And the fact still remains, if you think that this guy who has done everything he possibly can to children, puppies, the Constitution, the laws of this land, is somehow going to risk the midterm elections happening and him be immediately impeached and then subsequently probably charged with a lot of things from different states that he's been, trying to get away from while he's been president of the United States, you're crazy. This guy is going to do anything he can to keep himself out of prison, wouldn't you? And so you're thinking that there's going to be a fair midterm election? This guy who's been noticed 38,000 times in the Epstein files, who's proclaimed that they're a hoax, that he had no real ties with him past a certain time, which was like 10 years prior to when he actually really did break ties. And you think that that guy is going to go gentle to the good night and just leave the Oval Office? My guess is that he'll be leaving on a stretcher or in a paddy wagon, because one way or the other, he's not leaving that office. There is nothing to tell me otherwise. And the fact that he's now going and calling the Republicans to nationalize the voter registration, and that the federal government should really be the one monitoring and make sure that there's integrity in the voter registration. He wasn't allowed to go and raid the Georgia facility, but he did it anyway. They were waiting for a court order to say whether or not they could actually do it. They didn't have the authority, and they just went and stormed it anyway. I don't know what number you're talking about, but I'll answer it in a second. The fact of the matter is this: he's raiding and trying to get voter registration. Now, the thing of it is this: the voter registration information, the vital statistics that he's trying to get, is very damaging for everybody. Because here's the deal: they're trying to get not only to figure out who's voting and making sure that they're legally allowed to vote and all that crap, which is obviously a good point. They also want the information on voters because they want to be able to determine who they're going to vote for. So you got that. But then you have a whole group of people that haven't voted at all. That's where the fraud's going to be. Because here's the deal: in the last election, you had 77 million Americans that voted for Trump. You had 45 or 74, 75 million people that voted for Harris. Cool. They came out, they voted, they made their voice heard. You got to respect them, even if you don't like the decision they made. Both sides of the aisle, bipartisan. But you still had almost 100 million Americans in this country of voting age that didn't vote at all. Now, if they can get their hands on that list, and if they were to take that list of people that never voted or aren't registered to vote or all this, that's where the manipulation in the next terms could be. Because if they can find all of those people and either get them to actually vote legally, or if they cook the book somehow and get their names on the ballots and had voted, then you've got a whole new group of people. So that 77 million that originally rooted for Trump in the last election could wind up being 100 million, because he could try and find 30 million people that have never voted ever. It's all about the statistics, not only of how people have voted, but whether they voted or if they ever will vote. And the people who have never voted are where he could use the most manipulation. But again, for all of this, he tried gerrymandering the districts to keep the House and the Senate in charge. That didn't work. He's been trying to bully and create, chaos within all the blue states, not the red states, but all the blue states, trying to actually upheave these individuals and make it to the point where these blue states are not only financially, federally funded, cut off, because if you remember, February 1st, he was going to cut all of the federal funding to the blue states, or the sanctuary states, as he calls it. But then also by alienating them, creating all of this havoc and chaos like in Minneapolis, Minnesota, he can sit there and say, well, we can't really authorize or accept those votes because they could have been tampered with. There's too much chaos. There's so much civil unrest there. There's no possible way. And that's exactly what he's aiming for. And that's a MAGA mentality, which is kind of dim, because the reality is that's only going to go so far. He is just flat out going to find a way to squash it, whether it's not allow it to happen or take over control. And I know that there's a ton of people here going, you're an idiot, Ronin. You can't possibly know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Guess what? There's been a crap load of stuff that we've said this guy can't do, and he's done it anyway. He can't rename the Kennedy Center. That was done by Congress. Congress has that authority. It's still changed. He can't take a plane from Qatar and put it into his presidential library. He can't take gifts. That's against our laws. He's still doing it anyway. In fact, the new Air Force One is being refurbished right now so that he can use it, apparently because he knows he's going to stay here past 2028. Let's just get into that later. There's a ton of things he wasn't allowed to do, but yet he still did. He shouldn't have cut SNAP benefits to 42 million Americans during the last government shutdown, but he did. You know what I mean? He shouldn't have sued the IRS for $10 billion, which he in turn is going to have his people authorize and sign the deal, and he's going to sign into order and cut the check to himself. but he's still doing it. So the list of things that he couldn't do or shouldn't do or the Constitution won't allow him to do, he's been systematically just pushing those to the side, going, yep, okay, great. He wasn't supposed to go and attack Iran without actually congressional oversight, the Gang 8, but he did it anyway. And then the Fruit Loop decided that he thought he had the entitlement or right to actually ask for the Nobel Peace Prize after just a month prior bombing Iran. And Iran hadn't done anything. He's not allowed to elicit war or try to do anything of a wartime act without Congress's authority or at least proof of why you did it. There was no reason for him to go into Venezuela, but he did it anyway. There was no reason to go to Iran because Iran wasn't opposing any imminent threat to us. He wasn't allowed to bomb boats in the Caribbean, but he's done that, and nothing is stuck to this guy. He is literally in a rainstorm in South Florida, walking through the raindrops, not getting an ounce on him. Trump is doing an amazing job, yes, of breaking the law and the Constitution. You're right. He's doing an amazing job. And the fact is, Trump is named in some of the most horrific elements possible. And proof, and I'll break this up for all you MAGA lovers that love Trump. If Trump is innocent of the Sasha Riley stuff or the King or Hall or all the 27 women that have come out and said that he raped them, then why hasn't he sued them? Because he sued over 4,000 people over the last 30 years. Anybody that defames him or whatever like that, he's actually just come out recently, says, oh, I'm going to sue Trevor Noah. No, he's not. Because if he sued Trevor Noah about his jokes about being on the island, you would have to have discovery, which means that the flight plans and all of the travel logs that go to either his plane or Epstein's plane or the FCC rulings, that all would have to come into play, which could prove that he was on the island. Oh, I'm glad you think that I'm an idiot. That's awesome. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. It's kind words like that that always makes me keep on going. So don't worry about it. I have ex-family members that like to make fun of me too. So there's nothing you can say. I've been through a divorce. I'm dead inside, really. If the Grim Reaper comes, there's not going to be a lot of crying like, oh my God, I want to say, no, just my bags are packed. They're ready to go. So don't worry about it. If you're going to insult me, at least be original. I mean, there's tons of shit that you could talk about. Like, I don't know, but we'll get back to that. The reality is travel logs are available. Yeah. You know what else would be really damaging to him? The wire transfers. That's like they said, there's still at least 2.5 to 3 million files that haven't been released. The wire transfers, the money records, those are where the nickels and the pickles are. Because I'm telling you right now, there's no question about his, gap testing, children to see if where they're at in their sexual cycles before auctioning them off in Mar-a-Lago. That's just a disturbing thought process onto itself. But the money will determine whether or not he actually was compromised by the Russian oligarch. The fact of the matter is that Epstein did have bank accounts in Russia, and those bank accounts were seized because they were tied to trafficking, whatever like that. The reality of it is this: Epstein is the connection between him and Putin, and him and Trump. There is the bridge, because Epstein obviously went everywhere. He knew everybody, so he was able to make those leaps and those connections, whatever like that. And if they can prove that Putin was actually at the island, and they can prove that Trump was at the island, cooked again. But again, it doesn't really matter. We're literally gathering up diamonds on a stranded island right now. No chance of survival. There's no chance of getting off the island, but we're still collecting all the diamonds because there's like a hope, like, oh, these are really worth something. You guys are going through finding all of this stuff in the Epstein files and finding all of this stuff and going, look, stuff that would be actionable against you or me. But yet somehow, some way, all of this evidence that keeps being brought up, nobody's doing anything with it. So yeah, do I really think the midterms are going to happen? No, because what lends you to believe that he would actually do that? He can't take and deport people out of the country without due process. He's doing it anyway, and now he's got the Supreme Court that's overruling every lower court's decision that goes against him. And again, if the courts found him in contempt, found Bondi in contempt, Noam in contempt, what's the provision to actually make them be seen and tried? There's young Russian women. I apologize. I was just reading. The reality of it is this: we are watching systematically a complete breakdown of our judicial system. And you know what the problem is? And this is what's going to be disturbing to some people, is that Trump isn't president despite of the Epstein files. Trump is president because of the Epstein files, because he had all of the information. And the only person who possibly has more information about the Epstein files than Trump and his DOJ, do you know who it's going to be? Who I'm going to say? Ghislaine Maxwell. Because when Epstein was took into custody in 2007, okay, his house in Palm Beach County was empty, or Ghislaine Maxwell was there. Because what we do know for certain is that when they showed up to that mansion in Palm Beach, computers were gone, hard drives were gone, files were gone. There is a whole documentary about how they walked in. There's a video documentary about Epstein where they were like, when they came in to execute the warrant, this is what we found. The whole place had been gutted of any kind of information that could have been used to, implicate people. Hold on, I'm gonna give you size. Well, the fact of the matter is that you've got the Republicans and the Democrats that are fighting back and forth. And I don't think as long as there's a Republican or a Democrat in the thing, you're never going to get 100% justice for these women or children. Excuse me, not women, children. I mean, they're women now, but children. They were children then. Okay, we do know for a fact that, you know what? Also, here's a big thing: is that there's a lot of people who are like, Trump's amazing, Trump's amazing, Trump's amazing. Okay, cool. Well, guess what? Epstein and Trump were buddy-buddy. Ghislaine Maxwell used to know Trump and was involved with Trump in business deals and this, that, and the other long before Epstein became in the picture. That's something no one always knows. Do you know what Trump was also doing way before him and Epstein hooked up? He had pageants, beauty contests, Teen USA, Miss USA, Miss America. He had all of these pageants. So he had 2 or 3 modeling agencies, one for adults, 2 for children, like that Casablanca like type of thing, whatever like that. He had all of this connected, all of this together. He had casinos, he had hotels all across the country, even into Europe. So he had all of this network long before Epstein got into with him. And so you're going to tell me that you honestly think that Maxwell is protecting her dead boss? No, I think she's protecting her live boss. I think Maxwell was actually protecting Trump because she's got all the records, she's got all of the evidence, and she probably has a better safe space. Because here's something else. I don't think Epstein killed himself. And you know why? Why would somebody who had so much dirt on so many people unalive himself? Why would he do it? He wouldn't need to. P. Diddy almost walked out. He got 4 years when he was facing quadruple life sentences. He got 4 years. See you later. The reality is that he is literally trying to sell this theory that somebody with all this dirt on everybody was going to unalive himself as if he wasn't going to get out of it. I mean, Epstein wasn't associating with, the Crips or, the Bloods or some local gang. He was on top level tier. He was dealing with some of the most influential people in the world, princes, kings, the whole 9 yards. And you're telling me that he was going to off himself and that he didn't know that he was going to get out of this scot-free? This is mostly fact. People fucking get over it. The fact of the matter is that this doesn't make sense. And the reason why it doesn't make sense, and the reason why Ghislaine Maxwell got moved from a state federal facility in Florida to a freaking Camp Fed in Texas and got a puppy, was because of all of the information she knows and how she can implicate the very one person that could actually make that move. Because if you didn't realize, her move from that maximum security to that camp in Texas is not even a lawful transaction. Because the fact of the matter is that if you are convicted of a certain level of crime like Maxwell was, that particular facility that she's at now isn't for that. It's a federal lockup, yes, but it's for, low end federal charges, stuff like, insider stock trading and all of that type of white collar crime, not a felony charge of trafficking and whatever like that. And the co-conspirators, It's funny that she says I'm going to name co-conspirators in my habeas corpus that she files, and then 2 days later, the Epstein files drop. 3 million people drop because they're trying to bury that story. They don't want people looking at Maxwell. I know I'm right. Thank you very much for all that are sticking up for me. Like I says, this is like my fourth live I've done on YouTube, so I do appreciate everybody that's here. I will tell you that there's been a couple of quirky things that have been happening while I've been doing these lives. All of a sudden, I get like to the 35-minute mark, and all of a sudden it just drops out. I don't know if that's intentional or what, but we'll just keep it in mind. So, but thank you everybody that's actually doing it. Little girls, P. Diddy, adopted. I don't know. I don't know. But I will tell you, again, like I says, the means and the ability to impede this investigation has been at the top the entire time. Do you notice how Bondi, when she was confronted by the House Oversight Committee, she just refused to answer any questions because she knows exactly what happened to Trump's last cabinet. Do you realize that every single cabinet member in his last term have all been facing legal issues or sent to prison, disbarred and sent to prison, or one or two of them actually, self-checked out because they just didn't want to face the harassers. I mean, look at Mike Cohen. Look at what's his name? Rudy Giuliani. I mean, Rudy Giuliani, when the 9/11 thing happened, he was considered to be like this amazing individual, and now he has to sell everything just to be able to get himself out. Happy Black History Month. I saw your photo in the files. I have to tell you honestly, I feel bad for 14-year-old boys in this country right now because 14-year-old boys are coming into their own. They're getting pimply faced. They're kind of like, like that high pitch, this, that, and the other one, and they're trying to get, dates with girls their own age. And here they've got to compete with CEOs and Microsoft owners and presidents and kings and princes. Like, how are they going to compete? They don't have the bankroll to, roll up on a Maserati and stuff like that. So the devil is a Democrat. Why is it that Democrats have been labeled, dim-witted, liberals, tree huggers, this, that, and the other for decades? They were the group that could never win because they were so liberal that they kind of caved to everything, and now all of a sudden they're radical. Like the Democratic Party's been around for how long, and we've only now been calling them like the radical left. Like none of the radical left are a part of like the NRA or the Tread on Me or these militia groups that are coming through. But yet all of a sudden now they're whatever. And the funny thing is I'm not Democrat or Republican. I can tell you right now, if you bring up a valid point about something good a Republican has done, I'll be glad to bring it up. If there's a Democrat, say it as well. And just so we're all clear, I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican that's in the files. You mess with children, that's it. And the funny thing is that you've got Congress people right now working in Capitol Hill that are protecting people that have actually done harm to children. Yet you have felons in prison who have literally beaten the crap and unalived people who've gone into prison and been found to have been messing with children. So prison justice seems to be more justful towards pedophiles than Congress is. How is that possible? How is it that prison justice seems to actually have justice when it comes to children being unalived or hurt, but yet the Congress, who's supposed to be the law-abiding citizens, are actually supposed to be doing this, are the ones actually protecting the PDF files? Because all of these people that are being redacted, they're being redacted because of like what they do for Congress. You know what I mean? Like they are. So it's not just a matter of, you see a lot of these Congress people that are like, they're voting and keeping the files, covered up, or they won't impeach Trump, this, that, and the other. It's all because whether they're in the files or their donors that they use to fund their campaigns are in the files, and that's how they're getting the votes. Because here's the deal. Remember something. Congress people, House representatives, all of them, they spend a lot of time fundraising, generating money for their campaign. So to get a rich donor who's like, look, I'm going to give you $5 million this year, but make sure my name stays out of the files or gets out of This is what things are going. There's a lot of these back-ended deals, and so that's one of the biggest problems that are going on right now. As it stands, we need 218 people to be able to impeach Trump, at least get the proceeds started. 214 are all Democrat. We need 4 to come aboard and say, hey, you know what? We're gonna take care of this, but that's not gonna happen, because the fact is that for as much as the Democrats are bitching and complaining about the release the files, they are also still complicit in this, because guess what? These files were around for at least 10 years. So not doing anything and not saying anything makes you as guilty as all hell, because guess what? This is something that, what was it? The deputy director of the DOJ, Trump's ex-attorney, which is comical, by the way. How is it that the ex-attorney to the Tangerine Twat Waffle is being the deputy director of Law and Order when he couldn't even get his client off of a 34 felony count? Like, why would you promote him after he failed so bad? Like, you hire him to defend you. You wind up going to, and getting felony charges put against you, but then you're like, I know you basically got my ass kicked in court, but here, let me give you a really great job. How is that possible? So forget it. We'll just digress. But let me see. You have to get rid of Trump. There's no question about it. By the way, yeah, no King's Day. I know I don't know how to flip the screen to make the mirror whatever like that, so you get the idea. I mean, I don't know how to. Yeah, yes, I call him the Tangerine Twat Waffle because he's tangerine, he's orange, but oranges are actually something you want in your mouth. Nobody wants him in his mouth. He's a twat, a twaddle, whatever, twat, and waffle, because he waffles on all of the decisions. He comes up with a great idea and then just goes back. Comes with a great idea, like that. Like it just is what it is. Trump for 2028. Do you realize how old he'll be in 2028? In 2028, he'll be almost 84 years old. That bitch isn't running right now. How is he going to run then? And the fact of the matter is that we're all talking about checks and balances. The fact is that this country is $38 trillion in debt. There is no balances, and those checks are bouncing because we can't pay for anything right now in this country. I don't know who John is. Republican. How did he win? I don't know. There's a lot of allegations. There was a hearing in New York saying that there was X amount of votes that actually were unaccounted that were supposed to go towards Harris. That never went anywhere. I mean, there was a voter fraud investigation back in about the 2016 whatever. They've proved very quickly that Russia had interfered. Yet somehow, the investigation, when it came to pointing out whether or not Trump directly orchestrated it or tied it together, that investigation was stopped on day one of him taking off the Oval Office. He was also investigated for the insurrection, January 6th. Jack Smith, in case you guys didn't realize, he did a full breakdown on live television trying to explain exactly how he broke the law, and that Jack Smith would have prosecuted him and got a conviction. Now realize, Jack Smith's DOJ had a 95% conviction rate. They were certain that they could bring charges. He cited the reason why it didn't proceed forward was, how the hell are you going to try and convict a seated president? It's truth. And then the Mar-a-Lago documents and this, that, and the other. Every single thing that we keep bringing up. And again, and I'll say it again, the reason why he will not allow the midterms to go is because there's still elections tampering charges in Georgia that haven't been swung on. Those two charges I just talked about, January 6th and the Mar-a-Lago documents, those still haven't been actually brought forward. You've got New York has cases. He still owes over $500 million in legal fees in New York. He still hasn't paid that. In fact, Letitia James was actually starting to put the paperwork together to file liens against his properties to seize them because he hasn't paid the $500 million. It was $493 million. Couldn't even secure a bond to be able to bond it, to keep it all together. It's brutal. Yet again, like I said before, the same Republican Party that was so outraged by Bill Clinton having a semi age appropriate relationship with an adult intern triggered them so much that they had to impeach him for lying about it because he was obviously, embarrassed of what he did. And I'm not saying that lying is right, but whatever like that. But they still filed a contempt charge. They still impeached him even though they didn't remove him. Okay, cool. But then on top of that, that same Republican Party has watched Trump lie consistently about things, and they do nothing about it. They saw him take that plane and he's going to put it in the presidential library. They saw him invade Venezuela and take the president there and put him in U.S. custody, which is a total violation. What about Scotland? 2 individuals were taken off their ship in Scotland waters and brought to the United States to face charges of some sort. And the United Kingdom is freaked out about it because they're like, you're invading our sovereign lands and taking people out of here. Again, a violation. These violations stack up. Bombing boats in the Caribbean. Again, no cause, no jurisdiction, and no oversight on it. And yet that's going on. Then they've isolated the Pentagon from Congress because nobody's allowed to speak to Congress unless it goes through Pete Hegseth. No, and they got rid of all of the journalists out of the Pentagon. They do not allow journalists to report anything in the Pentagon except for one that was willing to sign the thing saying, you're going to approve everything that I write and publish before I actually do it. So they've controlled that. Anybody that speaks up about them in the White House, they're literally discredited. They're pushed out. How Leavitt could possibly fathom or even think that what she's doing is right is beyond me. And there's no question that when the midterms hit and he gets kicked out, you're going to see a whole group of them be in prison. You got Stephen Miller, guaranteed going to be facing legal charges. Pete Hegseth, no question about that. Probably war crimes on top of everything. International ones to boot. Kristi Noem, the only immigrant that's ever going to like her is the one that digs her grave when she finally passes away. Like the list goes on. You know what? Someone just said you're so full of crap and, you're lying. I wish I was. Honestly, I wish that I had something else to talk about. I wish I didn't have to be sitting here just wondering how bad is it going to get before the Republicans are finally going to say, okay, we've taken this too far. Anyway. And the funny thing is that I can't believe that Trump went from, we can't change the Second Amendment even though children are being unalived in school shootings, to, well, maybe we should reform the guns. So it's funny. There was no place for gun reform when children are getting unalived at schools or in public settings like churches and this, that, and the other. No possible way to reform the gun control, whatever I guess. But as soon as it winds up fitting in their narrative that maybe we should control the guns and there should be limitations because one of their federal agents unalived an individual who was carrying one legally with a permit and the whole 9 yards, who never even brandished it, then all of a sudden they're talking about the Second Amendment should be amended or changed. How is that fair? So it was okay for the kids to die, but now that the federal government is catching some heat for their actions, no. And this isn't a police force that they've got. This is a military group. They've got military hardware. They've got military grade armaments and the whole 9 yards, and the weaponry and the cyber security and all that they've got is military grade. They're not playing around, and they're going after unarmed citizens or unarmed, undocumented immigrants. And their brutality and the way that they treat and are going after everybody is unheard of, because you got to realize something. You are literally seeing a military force going after people that are breaking a civilian law. And it's not even a criminal law. It's a civil infraction, okay? If they are caught a second time, then it becomes a misdemeanor. So you got people with AK-47 style machinery or M16. I'm sorry, I'm not a military gun, or I'm not a gun guy. M16 and the whole bit, going after people and detaining them for being in this country without documentation. That's the quintessential example of using a baseball bat to swat at a fly. It doesn't make any sense. Have I lost my mind? Probably. We voted for this. I've heard that a lot. We voted for this. But I don't think you really could truly understand or comprehend just how this was going to be. I have a hard time believing, because the thing of it is, politicians promise things all of the time. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and you get used to that. Oh, yeah, he said he was going to do, and it never happens. I mean, Trump had made a lot of, proclamations in his first time. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and we're going to give you affordable health care that's going to be better than Obama. 16 years later, still ain't seen that. So, I mean, we expected that. But again, in a post I did, we are literally watching this president conduct himself in such a way, and we're like, there's no way he could do this, and he does it anyway. So, are you really shocked? And I still think that the 77 million Americans that voted for this, I don't know if they necessarily voted for this. I think that there was a lot they wanted out of it, but I can't imagine it. Yeah. And like I says, look at, I don't know if you guys know the story about Sasha Riley, but Sasha Riley came out and said that he shoved a tent spike up the rectum of, the commander in chief, and then that's the reason why he has a diaper all of the time, because he's incontinent. So my question is that if he was lying and didn't have evidence to support all of this, why hasn't the Tangerine Twat Waffle gone after him and sued him for defamation or slander or whatever like that? Because he's going after Noah Trevor, you know what I mean? Which he's not really going to, because he'll get to Discovery and he'll back the hell off. But that's what we're dealing with. So I do want to say thank you to everybody, because I've got, almost 400 people in here, a lot of likes. If you guys want to tap the screen and show a little bit of love, I'd greatly appreciate it. We don't think he is doing enough. You don't think he's doing enough? Okay, so crashing the economic growth of this country, that wasn't enough? How about the alienation of our allies like Canada and Mexico and the United Kingdom? The United Kingdom is a commonwealth of 56 different states. So if the UK and Canada decide to break ties 100% and just lock us out, not only are we losing a great resource to natural resources and raw goods that we take in each year, because it's like $600 million worth of raw materials that we turn around, process, and send out, and make about another $400-500 million off of that product. So we're going to lose all of that. And then Mexico and all their parts, they're going to stop. So if these commonwealths and these people stop working with us in this country, and we're truly isolated, then we're going to have a hard time being able to keep our budget and our economics up, because right now we're $38 trillion in debt. Did you know that the American people in this country right now are $4 trillion in credit card debt? That's right. United States citizens who have credit cards are reporting that the whole sum is just over $4 trillion in credit card debt, which proves that in this last year, we've been living on our credit card more than our paycheck. And that's not something you can dispute. And the fact that we have lost so many jobs. Do you know that in January, this country didn't produce any new jobs, but we saw over 50,000 jobs laid off? You had 36,000 for Amazon. You had Starbucks that laid off 15,000 people and closed a few stores. There's been tons of things to show that the economic plans that have been conducted in this year, or last year rather, hasn't benefited this country at all. The stock market has lost more money, and people with 401k plans now have half of what they had before he got into office. This guy has bankrupted six companies, 3 freaking casinos. He has been banned from being able to run universities, pageants, charities, schools. 34-time felon, can't even travel to some of the states, but are the countries that he wants to ban and impose tariffs on. And yet you're sitting here telling me that he's doing a good job? What about the farmers that have all lost their ass from all of this? And now Vance is deciding to be a part of this acreage firm that goes around buying up, bankrupt farms. Talk about making money on the way up and the way down. And this is what's happening in this country. And yet you guys are saying that Trump is doing an amazing job. At what? Grifting? He's literally going to sue the IRS. He actually sued the IRS for $10 billion. That $10 billion is taxpayer money. He's going to he's sued the IRS, saying that leaking his tax returns had caused irreparable damage, da 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 da. And so he's asking for $10 billion. The people who would either deny the claim, process the claim, or fight the claim in court are the DOJ that he's got in office right now. And who are the DOJ? Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is his ex-attorney that helped him get 34 felony counts, who for no reason really doesn't deserve the position he's got, but hey, why not? Pam Bondi was a part of the 2007 investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. She was the AG back then in Florida, and now she's protecting Trump in office right now, protecting the Epstein files from being released, and has been in charge of redaction related this. And these two people that have basically been bending over and screwing themselves have now got the authorization to approve or disapprove a settlement for a lawsuit being brought forward by the seated president of the United States. That is disgusting on many levels. And at the end of it all, he has to approve it. So how do you think that's going to go? And that is just the prelude to the last one, where he hit the country for $230 million because Jack Smith was caused him harm and pain because he was investigating him, and he said it was unjust. They are proving it in court. Don't you understand? That these are all things that people with far better legal minds are going to bring forward. And the reality of it is this is all going to wind up coming out. Whether or not anybody does anything with it, that's been the premise of this live the entire time. Because the truth of the matter is this, guys, just so we're all clear, it doesn't matter anymore. Because even when the courts rule against him, he gets the Supreme Court to overrule it. Or the judgment stands and nobody enforces it. So what exactly is going to happen? When was the last time the U.S. had a king smarty pants? Well, the last time they didn't have a king was in 1776. But the way that this guy's operating and treating the world right now, take my pills. I don't have any pills. That might have been a good idea. God. Anyway, so this was the live. I really... He's a dictator. Okay. You are a sellout. No. Are you a communist? No. No, I'm not a communist, but thank you. I'm just gonna look to see if there's any questions. Trump 2028. Do you realize that Trump 2028 is a fictitious thing in your head? He will be 84 when he gets out of office in 2028. If he ran, that means he would be 89 by the time he finishes whatever like that. And guess what? Oh God, I'm going to say this. The Constitution says that he can't run. Which is the premise to everything that I've said. This guy doesn't care about the Constitution. He does what he wants, how he wants, and what he wants. And he doesn't care about the outcome because he's just going to ignore it anyway. He just denies, defeat and claims victory on everything. So, you know what? He probably will, but the math is going to be the problem because here's the deal. He'll be 84 in 2028. So he'll be 89 by the time he finishes. Could you imagine? You had a problem with Sleepy Joe in the office. This guy has been falling asleep and shitting himself in the Oval Office as well as in cabinet meetings, and yet you think he's going to make it that far? Come on. What do we think about... I don't know if... okay, so someone just said, what is your theory about Trump using the pageants to supply the girls? That's what I said in the beginning of this. There is a theory that I've come up with that links Maxwell to Trump long before Epstein. In fact, the truth is, Maxwell and Trump were friends and business associates before Epstein got into the picture. Granted, not for very long. I think it was like 1 or 2 years, but there is evidence out there supporting that. Trump had the casinos. He had the pageants, he had the beauty contests, he had the Teen USA, Miss USA, he had, Teen America one. You know what I mean? There's so many avenues, and then he had hotels, he had golf courses, he had all of these things, and there's a lot of allegations that he sent his girls they were girls, from his Mar-a-Lago to Epstein or to other clients that were a part of the Mar-a-Lago band. So it makes sense. Yeah, there's too many coincidences for there not to be actual smoke. I'm sorry. There has to be there when you see that much. Occam's razor is that it's the obvious answer is always the it's just a reality. You can't have this much and it not have at least whatever. And the thing of it is this. I said it in the beginning of this live, and I don't know if you realize this. The Epstein files were released. Now, this is only half the Epstein files. Trump is named 38,000 times just in documents, not pictures, not videos, not sworn affidavits, but just random documents and this, that, and the other. 38,000 times, okay? Jesus Christ was named like 1,500 times in his book, not in the e-files. Come on, we all know he wasn't, whatever. Harry Potter had a 7-book series, and he was the main character, and he was named only 1,900 times. You know what I'm saying? So the reality that Trump was named so much, and the fact that the House Oversight Committee knows this and is just like walking right past the house on fire to talk to, Bill Clinton about his connection to Epstein, back then, but yet totally ignoring the fact that Trump is like named in all of this. And the thing of it is this: none of the references to Bill Clinton reference any kind of ill behavior. He's referenced, but we haven't seen any radical rights, as the radical rights want to call the left, showing like, look, Bill Clinton did this to this girl, or hey, this girl alleged this. We haven't seen any of that. All we know is that he's mentioned 1,900 times. Now, did you know Barack Obama was named 2,009 times in the Epstein files? And none of it was correspondence with him and Epstein. None of it. It was articles, newspapers, it was clippings, it was emails from Bana to Epstein, or Epstein to Trump, talking about Obama. But nothing actually talks about it. It's not about Harris losing. It's not about Trump winning. What it's about is little girls being touched, and a whole group of people, over 1,000 victims, having their voice heard. It's about the fact that this administration is fleecing the American people in the sums of like billions of dollars, and yet you're sitting here supporting and going, yay, he's stealing your money. He's literally a lawsuit to the IRS, $10 billion. That's coming out of taxpayer funds. Taxpayers are paying that. The $230 million that he sued to get, because Jack Smith investigated him and it hurt his feelings, that was $230 million. And they're cutting a check for that as well, because his DOJ, the people he appointed, the people that worked for him directly or indirectly for years, are the ones that are going to actually approve it. And then he signs the check, the front and back. Okay, all right, Sean, that's cool. It's my opinion. Then you know what? If you've never seen my page, let me be the disclaimer. I want you to challenge everything that I say. If I said tomorrow was Thursday, you should double check it. Just like you should any content creator. Anybody that comes on here speaking about anything, this isn't the final word. It's the beginning of a conversation. I want everybody that watches this to realize one ultimate goal. My goal is to be a voice to bring shit up, and hopefully somebody better than me, more popular than me, will see it and be like, oh, that's a great idea. I can do something about that. Because I know my place in life. I know I'm not set to be some political empirist, but I also know that change comes from everywhere. People come up with ideas constantly, and guess what? That's okay. And guess what? If I come up with something and you challenge it and you can prove that you're right, I'll be the first one to come on here live. Dude, this guy, he was right. I was wrong. But you'd have to then do the research and stop just looking at Facebook or looking at the clips of Fox News going, oh, well, that must be the truth because it fits me really well. Because freedom of speech means accepting the speech that you don't exactly approve of or agree with or respect. I respect the fact that 77 million people voted for him into office. I respect that because that was their right. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to appreciate it. And I don't even have to like it. But I have to respect it because that was their free will. That was their voice. That's what it's all about. If I wanted to call someone the C word, that's not right. But if I wanted to use the C word to describe myself or describe how I feel or da-da-da-da-da, that's my right. You don't get to impede on my rights. I don't get to impede on yours. So you want to sit here and say all of this, that's cool. But the truth of the matter is that freedom of speech is supposed to be absolute. And the reality, this administration cared so little about children being unalived that they didn't want to reform the Second Amendment for nothing. And now that it would fit their goals to, change that law so that they could somehow cushion their liability on what happened to Alex Peretti, then all of a sudden they're okay with it because their moral code is bought and paid for based on what it's going on. As I said before, Trump is not president despite the Epstein files. Trump is president because of the Epstein files, because as soon as he got in office, he wound up using all of the leverage in those files to squeeze everybody. And that's why all of these Republicans are just clapping like little ducks, just taking everything he says as gospel, because he is using he's using his position, his information, as well as everything in those files. And it's coming back to bite him in the... It just is. Yeah, and I don't remember riots, mass riots or no king protests during Obama or Biden. You know what I mean? Like the funny thing is that you guys think that Trump is so amazing. Let me ask you this question. Why is it when Trump had his birthday celebration in June for his birthday, a military celebration, he got a military parade for his birthday, despite the fact that he dodged the draft 5 times using bone spurs to defer his deployment to Vietnam, so he couldn't even be bothered serving his country with honor and respect. He needed to have that, and he was paying individuals to be in attendance to that because nobody wanted to go to it. Yet, you had the No Kings protest. People went there for free to protest against him. How bad do you have to be when you've got to pay people to celebrate your birthday, but people will protest against you for free? And what makes it worse is that everyone in Minnesota was protesting in negative 20-degree weather, okay? Bones don't break, they shatter in negative 20-degree weather. But they would rather protest against him in bone-chilling negative 20-degree weather than celebrate him in the summer. That's exactly what you're dealing with. And you never had that with Obama. Because here's the deal. Obama was black. Obama was persecuted and looked at and ridiculed. Everything that Obama did while he was in office was picked over and methodically double-checked and value-checked and this, that, and the other. And the Republicans wouldn't give him an inch. So when you want to sit here and go, well, he deported more people than everybody. Technically, no, he didn't. He was in office for 8 years. So when you break it off, it's 300,000 people were deported each year. But every single one of them got a judge, a trial, and was due process, and was given the ability to fight to stay in the country. Yet now that's not happening. We have people that are in concentration camps, because that's what they really are, and they're having their due process violated. They're starving. You've had women who've had miscarriages while sitting on the floors of these things. And all of this while Congress isn't allowed to do any oversight. Every single time they go to see one of these camps, they're turned away, even though Congress is supposed to have the power and control. Congress was the one that named the Kennedy Center. Congress is the one who funded the Kennedy Center after Kennedy was assassinated. John F. Kennedy was an actual hero. He served his country. He got a Vietnam, he got awards. He got a Purple Heart, Distinguished Cross. He served his country with honor. And here's a fun fact most people don't know. Kennedy was so rich, his family was so rich, that Joe Kennedy was basically like a Bezos of his time because of bootlegging, whatever like that. But we won't talk about that. But the fact is that Kennedy used his money to get into the military because he had physical abnormalities that stopped him from being able to pass the physical. Joe Kennedy actually got JFK into the military using his money because JFK wanted to serve, and he served with honor and respect and served whatever. Then he became a senator, then he became president, and he died for his country. That is valor. That is noble. And the tangerine twat waffle who deferred payments, who hid from going to service for his military, who demands the military to respect him because of the position he has, not the actions that he takes, decided to put his name on the side of the Kennedy Center. That was against the constitutional law because it was only Congress that was allowed to do it, but yet he still did it. And you guys think that this is the guy who's going to allow the midterms to go through. This is a guy who steals valor and tries to rebrand everything so that he can obtain a respect. Because to him, buying respect is better than doing options that would actually earn him the respect. And there's nothing that you could say that can change it, because how could you possibly think it would be acceptable to take and put your name on a building that was a memorial to a fallen soldier and president? But yet he thought that. And what's the grand total of that? Everybody's canceled. Nobody wants to perform at the Kennedy Center. And now the Kennedy Center is going to close for 2 years for remodeling because they can't get anybody to go there and perform anymore. But that used to be a cultural icon. It was a place that everybody strived to perform at, and now nobody wants to go there. Thanks, Trump. Did you know that Kennedy actually raised the money for that property? He raised the money to build that because that was in production and being built while he was still alive. Him and Jackie actually fundraised to generate the money to build that building. And so it was honored to him after he was assassinated. But yet he thinks he could put his name on it. That seems acceptable. And that's what 77 million Americans voted for. So would I like to call those 77 million Americans that voted for him a lot of names? Yes, but I still have to respect the fact that it was their vote, that was their choice. But I can ridicule the 100 million people that stayed silent, the people who couldn't be bothered going out and voting despite they saw all of this. A lot of people always go, I can't believe, how could the Germans have accepted and allowed the Nazi party to do what they did, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Exactly. We're living it because people are watching just going, there's no way they're going to allow that to happen. There's no way he can do that. That's against the Constitution. And then he does it. So I want to say thank you to everybody. I do want to say thank you to everybody that's been here. I'm coming up on an hour, and it's been great to hear from you guys. I do appreciate it. I will tell you that I would love to do another one. I will notify you. If you're not a follower or a subscriber, please subscribe now. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you want to be a part of everything, you go to my posts. I usually comment about stuff. I post when I'm doing a live. So if there was something that you wanted me to bring up, or if there's something that you want me to focus on the next live, I'll do it. I have no problem with that whatsoever. My email address is ronin-warchild@gmail.com, which should be on my page as well. So you guys are welcome to send me stuff if there's topics you want. We're not Nazis, but the fascism regime that we're dealing with, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it might be a duck. I mean, I'm sorry, but I mean, this country is so busy burning books that they don't bother reading the books. Okay, we are now in a country where Anne Frank is actually technically a banned book. It's classified as propaganda because Anne Frank was anti-fascism, which by this definition from this administration means that she's a domestic terrorist, because Alex Peretti was an anti-fascist individual as well. He didn't agree to the establishment. He thought that this was outlandish. He didn't agree with ICE agents, so they labeled him a domestic terrorist. So Anne Frank diaries are classified the same way. They've banned books across the country. Angela's Ashes, banned. Why? Why would that be banned from schools? But it is. The educational system in this country was poor already, and now all of a sudden they're taking out all the means and possibilities to actually, regulate. They decided to hire Vince McMahon's wife from WWE to be the chairperson and director of education. You've got Robert Kennedy Jr. being the health guy. Yes, his experience with Betty Ford for 15 years doesn't qualify him to be medically sound to be able to give educational information about what children should take or do in any way, shape, or form. I don't even think he should be around children, let alone be explaining what they should or shouldn't be doing with their bodies. Greetings, Germany. Nice to see you. Germany, and I did that. It's not what I meant. But there's a lot of humor here, so it's and then what else you got? You've got Stephen Miller, like this puppeteer in the background. You got Kristi Noem, who had no Homeland Security or FEMA experience whatsoever. She fell asleep at the wheel and left the approval for funding for the floods of Texas. And yet, this is the person you have in place. If you look at the people that Trump puts into power and puts around him or like that, first off, they're all fall guys. Because during his first cabinet, he literally, every single one of them has either been criminally charged with something or has somehow, some way been put in prison, disbarred, or sued into oblivion. It doesn't matter. It's all of them. That's every cabinet member, which is an uncanny thing. The only person who technically didn't get any harm or foul or whatever like that was Pence. And in January 6th, they were actually hunting and trying to take him down because he refused to not call the election and give it to Biden. Yeah. So this is what we're dealing with. This guy is gay. No, Brandon, I'm fluid, which means that I'm a greedy son of a bitch, which means I'll jump on both sides of the fence if it's fun. So, haha. Most fascinating thing in my life is my orgasm. Least fascinating thing is yours. So why don't we just stay off that topic? Are you butthurt? No, why? Were you going to buy me dinner first? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, so I've been on it for an hour. I appreciate everybody. I hope that if you're not subscribing, I hope you do, because like I said, I'm going to be doing more of these lives. I've got about 5 of them there. You can watch a couple of them, but for everybody that came in and it was supportive, I appreciate it. I hope to see you guys again, and I'll be doing another one tomorrow at the same time. I started this one at 1 o'clock. 12 o'clock. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock. I'm going to do it again. So anybody that hates on me can hate on me tomorrow too. Bye.